Hey guys, we're back to another video. Today we're talking about severe weather in today's video. So let's get into today's video. Here we are looking at the satellite for today and categorical outlook here. And we see there's not much clouds in the area where we're going to see this severe weather outbreak or even tornado outbreak today. We don't see many clouds. Most of it's in Texas, in Kansas, in a little bit of Oklahoma, but not in the area where the moderate risk is put out for today. Moderate risk was issued 12 a.m. last night, and in the latest update, it has gotten bigger. As you can see here, in the latest update, it's gotten bigger. Let's look at the Cape here, instability, basically what we call it. I'm going to turn off the SPC thing here so you can see it a little better. We don't have much instability here, it doesn't look like. It looks like it's trying to build up here. About 600 probably heading into this area where we have a moderate risk today, but not like 1,000 or 2,000 quite yet. So that's why we're not, if any storms do develop quite yet, they're not going to get too strong quite yet. Let's also look at the moisture here, see what it looks like on here. This is what the moisture is. And we see there's about 60s in most of Oklahoma here. So good moisture. So all we need is probably about 1,000 or 2,000 Cape and 60 dew points for severe weather. We also have a cold front coming through, so we have lift. And then the shear, we do have some shear for later today. So um, let's look at our SPC outlook for today. We have a moderate risk of severe weather, as you can see, so a marginal risk for this area here, marginal risk up here too. We also have a slight risk for this area here, pretty big slight risk. And then a slight risk in Minnesota, so maybe some severe weather up in Minnesota. Also enhanced risk here, pretty big enhanced risk for portions of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, a little bit of Missouri, and then a little bit of Kansas too. Then we have this pretty big moderate risk of severe weather for Oklahoma, including Oklahoma City, Tulsa, some of those areas. The risks are going to be today, not just tornadoes. We could see damaging wind today. Our least threat will be hail, but we're still going to have to watch hail, especially when the storms start up. So that's usually when we see our biggest hail and tornado threat, because they're going to be supercells, most likely when they develop. So we're going to have to watch when they develop. Then later on, it will become a damaging wind threat, because it's going to try to turn into a line of thunderstorms as it moves toward Oklahoma City. So we're going to look at some of the models in today's video in just a little bit. Let's look at the tornado outlook for today. We see there is 2% and 5% chance of tornadoes here in this region, all the way up to 15% chance, and then 2% and 5% chance of tornadoes up in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Here in Oklahoma, we have a 10% and 15% chance. A 15% chance of tornadoes is not issued very often, so this is kind of a rare thing of seeing a 15% chance of significant tornadoes possible. So, a few tornadoes possible, or actually a few tornadoes likely, and a few of them could be intense today in that 15% chance area, or anywhere in the black hatched area is where you should be watching for potentially tornadoes. I'd still be watching even if you're in the 5% chance or 2%. That's pretty significant if you have 2 or 5% chance still for some possible tornadoes. Let's look at the day one hail outlook here. Like I said, this is our least threat, but we're going to have to watch it, especially as the storms develop today. We have a 5 and then a 15% chance, then even a 30% chance of large hail for Oklahoma City with the hatched area, meaning possibly some significant hail of 2 inches or more in diameter. for portions of near Oklahoma City, especially as they develop as supercells near Oklahoma City. Also, to the north, we have a 5 and 15% chance of hail today, so we could see some hail up there too. Let's look at the wind threat here. This has actually been upgraded in just the last update at 11 o'clock. We have a 5% chance, 15% chance, like usual, 30% chance, and then even a 45% chance of damaging wind. The reason why we have that is whenever eventually it'll turn into a line of storms, and we're going to have to watch for possibly damaging winds, maybe even up to 80 to 90 mile per hour winds potentially in this area of Oklahoma City, Tulsa, some of those areas, possibly seeing some damaging wind gusts. So, in the hatched region there, we'll see at least 75 mile per hour winds or more, according to what it's usually, that's what it usually means. So we're going to watch that area very, very closely today. So yeah. Let's real quick look at day 2 outlook, and I definitely want to look at day 3 outlook because we're going to watch that day too. Let's look at day 2 outlook here. We have a marginal risk of severe weather and a slight risk of severe weather. There is a chance it could get an enhanced risk, but there is a pretty big slight risk, as you can see, extending from Michigan and Wisconsin all the way down to Missouri and Illinois. Some of those areas seeing this big slight risk. Let's look at the tornado risk for tomorrow. We have a very big 5% chance here from Wisconsin and Michigan all the way down to near St. Louis, Missouri. So Chicago's in this. Some of those areas are in this 5% chance of some tornadoes tomorrow. So this is from the same storm that's Oklahoma. It'll move up into this area tomorrow. Let's look at the hail risk for tomorrow. We have a 5 to 15% chance here, a portion of this area here, so we could see some hail. And then our wind threat for tomorrow is a 5 to 15% chance of seeing damaging winds. Luckily, no hatched regions right now. Let's look at the 3 categorical outlook, and we're going to watch this day because at least a few days ago, this was looking pretty significant, and it still kind of does here. And we see there is a marginal risk, a very, very big marginal risk. Look at how big this is. This goes from all the way from South Dakota all the way down to Texas. So this is a very big marginal risk. Then we have a slight risk here for this region here, and then enhanced risk of severe weather portions of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, all in this enhanced risk of severe weather. This could get moderate risk in here, and I'm not going to say this right now. I'm just saying this is a possibility later on, but I don't think this is going to happen tomorrow or anything, but maybe a high risk one in here. It's very unlikely right now, but it's a possibility because today was a moderate risk. So it's very interesting how we got a moderate risk today, and this is going to possibly be worse of an event coming up on Tuesday. We're going to have to focus on today's event more, and then whenever Tuesday's event, we're going to have to be worried then. Depending on how today's event will go, may depend on next week's event too. So we'll have to watch how today's plays out to see how Tuesday will play out. So yeah, because it will happen during the nighttime hours. That's probably one of the good things about it. Both the events today will be a little more in the afternoon when they develop. This is supposed to be like near during the nighttime these will develop to this area, so that might be a good thing there. That will be during the nighttime, not for the tornado threat, but like they might not have much instability because the sun's not going to be out during the night, of course. So, but we will have the moisture in here in this area, and we will have some shear up in this area. So we're going to have to watch Tuesday very, very closely. We'll talk about that later on. I want to focus on today's event more than tomorrow's and Tuesday's. Okay, let's look at the HRR. We're going to look at a few models today here. So yeah, we're going to look at the HRR first. So we see about right now, we're just going to see rain for portions of New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, maybe parts of Missouri and Iowa. So yeah, let's move on to around 2 p.m. Might have some thunderstorms try to develop near New Mexico, heading into Texas, but nothing too big. Fast forward here, then we start seeing these storms try to fire up near 5 o'clock. We see some of these storms trying to fire off. Not quite yet, it shows, but if we fast forward by 7 p.m., we have potentially some supercells near Oklahoma City, getting close to Tulsa. So some supercells. These could have large hail, potentially damaging winds of potentially 70 mile per hour winds, and tornadoes possibly too. Maybe a few of them being intense for portions of this area. So we're going to have to watch these supercells that develop later today for those threats there. So yeah, let's fast forward. You see there's still going to be some supercells as we continue into 8 o'clock. Eventually it kind of turns into a line as it heads toward Tulsa. You see it's kind of a line. If there's like supercells in the line, like kind of like supercells at the bottom of the line, we may have to watch for maybe a few tornadoes down there if that does happen. Um, so, but at this point, it's going to be more of a damaging wind event, but we're going to have to watch still for a few tornadoes during this time because there will be shear in this area. So we could still see some tornadoes, but probably the best threat for tornadoes will be when the storms start off later tonight. So for the best chance of tornadoes, because when they turn to a line, there's not as good of a chance for tornadoes, but still a possibility we could get tornadoes in this line if the line does develop here heading toward Tulsa by 9 p.m. Okay, let's fast forward here. It looks like it turned into a line. As it moves toward Tulsa, we're going to have to watch for damaging winds as it moves off that way. And then it kind of fizzles out by this point. By about 1 a.m., it doesn't look as severe. Okay, let's look at the Cape. We're going to be looking at pivotal weather for this here. This is starting out whenever the supercells start out. We will have 2,000 joules per kilogram potentially. 1,000 near Oklahoma City. Near Tulsa, we'll have about 500 joules per kilogram. So, yeah. Let's look at the moisture here for this area by this time. About 60s. It's already actually in the 60s right now, moisture in this area. So we already have the moisture here. We're just waiting for the instability to come in later today. We still have 60s, maybe getting close to upper 60s here. Let's see. We're going to look at the bulk shear now. See how much bulk shear we have. We have about 15 where these storms are developing. We have about like 28, 29 knots it looks like, so very interesting. Let's look at the significant tornado parameter here, and according to the HRR, it doesn't actually look too high in this region, at least at this time, but about right here 1.6, so very interesting there. Let's look at the LCL height and height, and the lower this is, the better chance for tornadoes. And according to this model, it shows actually pretty high values here. So, in the higher the values, the lesser chances tornadoes can touch the ground. It's not as easy for them to touch the ground. We have about 1,000. So, but where these storms are developing around this time, actually have only like 150. So, some tornadoes possible at that time where it's at in that area here. So, but it looks like when in Oklahoma, it looks a little higher, so it might be a lot harder for tornadoes to touch the ground and for eastern Oklahoma. So we'll have to watch that. I'm going to fast forward a few hours. We're going to look at the significant tornado parameter a few hours later, see if it goes up. And actually, it looks like as the evening goes on, the higher the tornado parameters are getting. About this time, about 4.8 here, as you can see. So it has went up, according to what this shows. Let me look at the bulk shear, and the bulk shear has actually really went up to 62 knots near Oklahoma City, I'm pretty sure, or very close to there. About 30 knots for most of this area. All you need is 40 knots, and we're getting close to 40 knots right in this area. So the more we go on into the evening, the better chance of tornadoes there'll be. And then we see this actually went down a little bit to 999 in this area. So yeah, kind of lower here. And we don't want the lower values. If we have lower values, that means it's going to be easier for tornadoes to touch the ground, according to what this is. So yeah. Now let's look at the M3K. Let's see what this thinks. We're probably just gonna look at the small. This will probably be the last model we'll look at in today's video. So let's look at this model here. See by we'll fast forward to 1 p.m. See rain showers for portions of New Mexico. Some rain showers for Kansas potentially, and Oklahoma potentially. Then by 4 p.m. we start to see some showers try to develop in Oklahoma, and then these are when the supercells are going to develop. Around 6 p.m. it thinks for Oklahoma and Kansas, it thinks that there could be supercells that do develop on the M3K here. Let's keep fasting forward. We have quite strong thunderstorms. It looks like potentially a line of thunderstorms by 8 p.m. here. I would have to watch for damaging wind if this is the case. For portions of Oklahoma City here, we'll have to watch. So yeah, we're going to have to watch that, and we're going to have to watch for any development down here if there's any supercells that develop during that time. So, you know, it looks like we will get some supercells that will develop south of this line here. So we could watch for maybe a tornado threat down here. We'll have to watch for that. And then it looks like a line here of thunderstorms heading toward Tulsa. So according to the M3K, it thinks it's going to be a damaging. It'll start out as a potentially large hail tornado threat, and then turn into a probably tornado threat and damaging wind threat. It looks like here, according to the M3K. Let's fast forward just a little more. We still see this line of thunderstorms for Oklahoma. We see some very heavy rain up here in Kansas and Missouri. Then we see some thunderstorms down here in Texas. So very strong thunderstorms here. And then we're going to fast forward. Looks like the line will weaken as it moves into Arkansas and parts of Missouri. But the southern part of the line may be still strong by 2 a.m. in the morning, it shows. So very interesting. So let's go back here and let's look at some of the model data. Okay, I'll have to switch models here to the M3K real quick. We're gonna put hour 11. So yeah, okay. This is when the storms are gonna develop, as you can see, for Oklahoma, Kansas, and them. So yeah, let's look at the Cape here. See how much Cape the M3K thinks there will be. Thinks there's gonna be a lot more Cape. It looks like about 1,000, especially for southern Oklahoma, 2,000 joules per kilogram potentially. So very interesting there to see that. Let's see what else is there. We're gonna look at let's look at the moisture here. How much moisture it thinks there's gonna be. It thinks, wow, 70s, lower 70s it looks like. So it looks a lot more higher moisture according to the M3K. This is the 12Z update, by the way. So by the time I release this video, the 18Z update might be out and it may be different. But right now, it shows possibly lower 70s here of moisture here. So that's interesting here. Let's look at the bulk shear proportions of this area. We have about 40 knots in this area, so enough for tornadoes. And where these storms are, there will be like, wow, 114 knots where these storms are developing at. So that is quite high bulk shear for today. Let's look at the significant tornado parameter. I bet this will probably be high for the M3K. And yeah, this is very high, as you can see on the significant tornado parameter. Very high values of anywhere from 0 all the way to probably 3.5 near, maybe even close to 4 for portions of this area. Let's look at the LCL height. Don't forget, the lower this is, the better chance tornadoes can touch the ground. And we see where these storms are developing. We see there's very low of 98 M here, so not very high. So that means it might be easy for tornadoes to hit the ground. And you see over here, it's not very high. So we see the M3K scenario play out, and that could be a bad day for portions of Oklahoma. Let's just fast forward a little more to uh, hour 13, and we see these parameters go up really high on the M3K. So we're going to have to watch this. This could be bad if and this does happen. Things potentially to all the way from 2 to potentially, let's say, possibly 6 on the significant tornado parameter portions of Oklahoma. So we're going to have to watch this because this will be a big event. So I would be getting your preparations ready in Oklahoma if I was there. So we're going to have to watch that very closely there. So yeah. Okay, let's just real quick look at radar for what tomorrow will look like, and then we'll look farther on. We're going to just look at the M3K for it. And we see some thunderstorms. We'll head toward portions of tomorrow in Indiana, Michigan. You see some thunderstorms here around 9 p.m. it looks like tomorrow, so you could be seeing some stronger thunderstorms. We'll have to watch for damaging wind, hail, and maybe a tornado or two here. So yeah, with these thunderstorms that do develop here, so we'll have to watch that very closely. So yeah. Also, if you can see by the end of this small run, you can see some of that next Tuesday's severe weather try to occur. So with the rest of this, we're going to look at the NAM 12 kilometers, see what this thinks for what will happen here. We see some thunderstorms may develop around 10 p.m. for portions of Kansas, move into central Kansas by 1 a.m., and then continue into 4 a.m., into 7 a.m., and it looks like it'll weaken by 10 a.m. With these storms. So we're going to have to watch this very, very closely. We'll have another video coming out later, probably early next week on that severe weather risk if I have time to make a video next week. But thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Stay safe if you're in the moderate risk for today, so be prepared. Thank you guys for watching.